we have an update to the Chicago Bulls' pursuit of Dame Lillard, trying to move Zach LaVine to Portland to try to get Dame Lillard to Chicago. We got an update on that. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about Bleacher Report's bold Bulls predictions for the 2023-24 season. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today, and we're going to just update on yesterday's episode. So, we had the report from the Philadelphia writer who said that, he's hearing that the Chicago Bulls were trying to push for a Dame Lillard trade, sending Zach LaVine to Portland to try to bring Dame Lillard to Chicago. And even though, I kind of broke it down on how the Bulls could try to make a Dame Lillard trade happen and what it would look like to bring Dame over here, even since the beginning of those rumblings starting, I said it. There was no possible way that it was going to happen. And, this kind of continues it, right? So not only was the article initially written or the report was done and spoken on by somebody in Philly who, how tied in are they really with what the Bulls are trying to do? It's not like the Bulls are going to be saying to a team like Philly, like, oh, yeah, by the way, we made a call to the Portland Trailblazers. And, we're trying to send Zach LaVine over there. But now, we're hearing that the Portland Trailblazers have zero interest in Zach LaVine because of them already having young wings down there, and Anthony Simon, Shaedon Sharpe. That absolutely makes sense. And when you look at the fact that they are trying to go younger, right? And that is the one thing in this, even when we talked about it over on Locked On Bulls, that I did say, right? The Portland Trailblazers moving on from Dame Lillard completely changes the outlook of their timeline. And even though Zach LaVine being 28 years old, turning 29 during this season, let's be clear here, right? That it's not what the Portland Trailblazers are looking for, even in hearing them with the Miami Heat in those trades, right? It's young players that they're really targeting, is young players, and they don't plan on trying to win anytime soon, right? And that's why even, they're willing to take pick swaps, right? More than first round picks outright. So, hearing that the Portland Trailblazers aren't necessarily super hugely interested in Zach LaVine, it's not shocking when and really pay attention to what that team's goals and aspirations would be moving on from Dame Lillard. They are trying to get young, talented players in there that can grow and develop in their system that then they can offer the most money to keep there, because Portland has never, and more than likely will never, be a free agent destination. Now, that is unless they already become a near championship team, and that is how they open up their window. And even then, sometimes, right, it takes a little while to get over the hump. But more so than anything, I want to talk about this. Like Zach LaVine, we've been hearing nothing really but, smoke around Zach LaVine's name and trade talks and things like that, really since the trade deadline, right? Hearing that, the New York Knicks were pursuing a Zach LaVine trade at the trade deadline. The Bulls didn't hear a package in which they would want back for Zach LaVine. And it comes down to it is that eventually where there's smoke, you have to realize that there may be some fire, and what that could mean for the future of Zach LaVine in a Chicago Bulls uniform. I've gone on to say, right? I do think that Zach LaVine, in my opinion, unless an amazing deal presents itself, I don't think they'll move on from Zach LaVine anytime soon. Now, I do think in maybe around next year's trade deadline, not this upcoming season, but the season afterwards, maybe that changes. If the Bulls just are still hovering around being that, fighting for that play-in spot and barely getting that, they may look to take advantage of Zach LaVine's contract at that point in time. He'd be moving into being 30 years old at that point in time, and they may, especially if some of those young players really show and develop and finally take that step and leap that a lot of Bulls fans want to see from them, at that point they may feel comfortable moving on. But Zach LaVine is not being moved. Like, let me be clear. It's not being moved just to be moved. The Dame Lillard trade was not going to happen, but eventually you have to start looking at, okay, the Bulls have been listening to offers now on Zach LaVine for over a year. It like we've been hearing those rumblings. So like, while they still hold Zach LaVine in a very high regard, and if they were to move Zach LaVine, it's not just to move him just to move him. And, some Bulls fans, because of their, dislike for Zach LaVine, have these like weird ass, just badass trade packages for Zach, just thinking like the Bulls are just going to be willing to move on. Now, I'm not saying that was the Dame thing, right? That's not a bad trade package at all if you're getting a player like Dame Lillard back, even with his contract. But overall, like it's I think this rumor shows you like the level of player that the Chicago Bulls are looking to get back in a Zach LaVine trade. Right now, it's a player of Dame Lillard's caliber. That is how they would want to, or what they would want to get back if Zach LaVine is moved. And so, again, those aspirations could change, right? If a player takes a leap or a step, right? And then, this team looks, different, to build around a different player. But at the end of the day, that right now isn't happening. And so, if the Bulls were to move Zach anytime soon, it's going to be in a major deal that brings a star to Chicago. But eventually you do have to start looking at it and just saying, listen, there's a lot, and a lot of it's rumors. Let me be clear here too. A lot of what we're hearing is rumors, especially in the offseason. It's writers looking for an angle. It's them trying to get headlines. It's them trying to do those type of things, right? It's a lot of that going on right now, and I want to be clear with that. But there's also, in even hearing in Casey Johnson talk about things, and right, like the Bulls have listened to offers, as they should. A front office should always be listening to offers on any player. Until you're that championship level team, you should open yourself up to listen, because you just never know what a team's going to offer, right? So, that's where the Bulls sit right now, in my opinion. We'll see if it ends up changing. The Dame Lillard ain't happening. And even like I said in yesterday's episode, if Dame's moved, it's going to be to Miami. I know that teams hope, and not to say that Dame is a very, he may have his preferred destination, but he's also a very prideful player. If Dame is moved on to a different team, he's going to play for that team, and he's going to give his all, right? And so, we'll end up seeing what happens with that. Another team could slide in there, but like I said, if the mystery Eastern Conference team, the Knicks still make the most sense in a case like that. But, things could change, especially once the season starts. And they trying to open up minutes, because they're not gonna not play Dame either, right? So you're gonna play Dame, and then the Portland Trailblazers may look at it, especially if Scoot starts showing things early, and they could just say, listen, I know we wanted more. This is what Miami's offering. Scoot looks amazing. We want more opportunities and minutes for him, and not still try to balance things out with Dame. Let's go ahead and take the offer. And that could be what's coming on the horizon for the Portland Trailblazers sooner rather than later. But hey, let me know what you guys think on all that down below, as always. But let's move into the next topic for today. So Bleacher Report had a list of bold predictions for the Bulls before start of training camp for the 2023-24 season. And, we're going to go over these, and I'm going to give some of my own, right? But, in the first one they had up is Zach has a 50-40-90 season. And so, listen, Zach LaVine's flirted with being the 50-40-90 player. If you look at 2 seasons ago, the season before Lonzo and Dame, Dame's on the mind now, and DeMar came here, Zach LaVine was damn near that 50-40-90 player. His averages were right there, right? And I think that the 50-40-90 is an elite mark for a scorer. That just is what it is, right? It's an elite mark for a scorer. And so, Zach LaVine getting that, coming into the season, being fully healthy, looking at his averages after the All-Star break last year. And the reason why we keep going to that is because Zach LaVine was fully healthy. After about December of last year, Zach LaVine really was fully healthy. He hit that stride, and then he took it even further once Pat Bev came in and kind of, helped everyone fit more into their natural roles. When you look at post-All-Star break, if we're talking about the 50-40-90 area, right? After the post-All-Star break for Zach LaVine, he was 50% shooting from the field, 39% from three-point range, and 87.8% from the free throw range. So what does that mean? He flirted with being that 50-40-90 player. And I do think that, this saying that he can have that season, considering they're starting off their season now with Javon Carter being there from training camp and day one of this season, if everything works together, Zach LaVine could absolutely have a 50-40-90 season. Now, I want to see him step up in other things as well, like more than the statistics, right? It's easy to look at the statistics, right? But the non-measurables. I want Zach LaVine to have a big season and hitting big buckets and stepping up his performance in some of the biggest games against the best competition. That's what I would like to see from Zach LaVine, more so than just, hitting that 50-40-90 mark. But as far as that being a bold prediction, I don't really look at it as too bold, because he's gotten close to it before. Can Zach LaVine just stay healthy? And I think if he has a fully healthy season and a focused season, we definitely will see a 50-40-90 season from Zach LaVine. Moving on, their next one bold prediction is Javon Carter leads the Chicago Bulls in plus minus. And so here's what I'll say. Alex Caruso, if Javon Carter passes Alex Caruso on court plus minus, then that'll be an interesting thing. But when you look at it, right, Javon Carter coming in, being able to be that defensive nightmare, right, being able to stretch the floor shooting, like keep in mind, to be to lead the team in plus minus, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the biggest scorer. It doesn't mean you have to score some, right? But you also, it's really indicative of the brand of defense the team plays when you're on the court. And Jevon Carter, he's not as switchable as Lonzo Ball by any stretch of the imagination, but you can look at it. He can guard ones and twos in this league easily, even some of the twos that outsize him, right? And so because of that, I do think that if Jevon Carter locks up that starting point guard role, which many of us do think that he will do, him leading the team in plus minus, and if that starting lineup gets rocking and rolling, Zach LaVine is the 50, 40, 90 player. We use use Nikola Vucevic a little bit better. Yeah, I do think that that's a possibility of happening, but I do think that that is now a bold prediction to say that. We talk about the winning play, right? And that is something that Jevon Carter does make. He makes the right and the winning play. Isn't always going to show up hugely in the stat sheet, and that's why, I do think that the more casual Chicago Bulls fans, the box score watchers, as I call them, they may have a hard time understanding how Jevon Carter impacts the game of basketball because, hey, there are a lot of Bulls fans right now that still underrate Alex Caruso's value to the Chicago Bulls because it's not something that's easily tangible in the stat sheet. But for those that watch the game of basketball and that watch it, that see it with their own eyes and break it down, Jevon Carter is going to give them a lot to be excited about this season. And then the last one, and the one that I think is the boldest prediction of this all, Patrick Williams gets all-star consideration. Listen, this is a definitely bold prediction from Bleacher Report in this one, and Zach Buckley, who wrote this article. Listen here, I will say this, man. If Patrick Williams has an all-star selection, if he's selected to an all-star, do you know what that would do to some of his naysayers, right? To some of the people that just constantly complain about the P. Will part of it, right? And so, we'll end up seeing with that, but I do think that that is a huge, and mainly because Patrick Williams' role isn't one that easily gets players at all-star selections or all-star votes. Listen, Patrick Williams, and as we've been talking about, and shout out to Ed Herring, who is one of the guys that, in the comment section and that interacts in the platform, and he always points out how Patrick Williams can have a great season without scoring the ball a lot. And that is true, right? When you look at Patrick Williams' role, his role in the way that he can thrive and be that gap filler, as I called him before, for the Chicago Bulls in that starting lineup, he can have an absolutely amazing season and still score 10.1 points per game, right? And it comes down to what he does defensively. It comes down to what he does in transition. It comes down to him going after the 50-50 balls, the rebounding, the block shots, right? Those are the type of things. I just don't know if Patrick Williams has the statistical year that is going to get him an all-star vote. And to Zach Buckley's point in this, he also points out that he's not saying that it's a clear thing that's going to make it that it's going to be easy for Patrick Williams to do by any stretch, right? But if Patrick Williams takes that much needed leap and things start changing, hey, you never know. Patrick Williams has flashed it before, right? And we've seen it from Patrick Williams in certain games, in certain stretches, on certain positions. But if this is a game, we've heard a lot about Patrick Williams' mentality this offseason, right? And if that mentality does change, I think he can have a great season. Calling it an all-star season, though, that's where it gets a little bit difficult, man. That is where it definitely gets difficult. But, hey, let me know your guys' bold Bulls predictions down below. Do you think any of these ones from Bleacher Report are on point? Do you think they're off point? To get into some of my bold predictions for this season, right, I think that Kobe White is going to get into the Sixth Man of the Year conversation. I just do. I think when you look at how Kobe put everything together last season, and then that scoring came on in the latter part of the season, I think that Kobe White, if he can merge those two and play that for a full year and stay healthy, I think that Kobe White is absolutely going to get some nods and talk about being the sixth man. Now, for him to win it, it would mean that the Bulls would have to get at least 45 wins, and that's at the bare minimum. And I don't know if that comes for him, right? Comes for the team, but I do think that his level of play can definitely get him into that conversation as well. As far as other bold predictions, I'm going to make one as well, and I think that this is going to be a season where Dalen Terry is going to step up in getting some opportunities, and by that I mean that he's going to be used in certain lineups, right? For certain matchups, and I think that we're going to start seeing the groundwork of what Dalen Terry can be, especially defensively in this as well. And then as far as that, I think Vooch is a little bit more selfish this year. And I'm going to look at Vooch to actually average 21 and 11 this season. That's 3 points over what he did last season. And I know that also calls for Billy Donovan to use him correctly. But I do think that, and these predictions aren't too bold, right? But I do think that, I try to be a reasonable person. So there you go with that. And I also think Zach LaVine averages 29 points per game this season. I think that's going to happen. I think that's on the precipice for Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine not selfishly. I think he's going to be a way more efficient player this year, and I think that's the points that he's going to average per year. But I just want to come in the right moments against the biggest teams possible, right? That's what I want to see. Let me know your guys' bold predictions for the Chicago Bulls. But that's it for today. Make sure you're following the channel at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.